Being a great consultant and having a thriving consulting business are not the same thing. So much of the advice out there about how to build a successful consulting business is hype, noise, and false promises. In reality, it's all about committing to doing a few simple things exceptionally well. It's not flashy or complicated, and it takes work, but it's the real deal.
Michael and I are cousins, but I guess we're more like brothers in a lot of ways. Our dads are twins, born into a Jewish working-class family in Winnipeg. There's a lot of symmetry in their story.
We both spent our early childhood living on a kibbutz in Israel. People thought my dad was crazy when he moved us there. We had a great life in Canada. My dad had a successful practice. We had a nice house, a cabin, boat, like the whole shebang. But he gave it all up to go live in this communal kibbutz on the other side of the world. One day he'd work as a doctor, and the next day he was milking cows or in the banana fields. He still says some of his happiest memories are from those days. Coming back to Canada was tough. I was 6, I didn't speak much English, and my parents divorced shortly after we moved back. I didn't really know anyone in Vancouver apart from family, so I started spending a lot of time with my cousin Sam. I was a fast learner, and I felt like a popular kid at school. I really excelled at sports. I got along with everyone, but I always felt like an outsider. You know, I loved getting away into nature. My stepfather Barry used to take me fishing. We'd rent a cabin on the lake, get up when it was still dark, and go out onto the water. I can still remember how peaceful that felt, the stillness. You know, I've lived most of my life in cities, but I'm a nature guy at heart.
I'm a little older than Mike, and I knew he looked up to me when we were kids. My family came back to Canada a few years before his, so I'd done the whole relearning English and reintegrating thing before him. We hung out, and through our teenage years, I got him into all the things I was interested in. Hip-hop, snowboarding. I'd traveled a bit as a child, and my friends at high school were from all over. So from a young age, I understood the world was huge, and I wanted to see as much of it as I could. When I was 21, we planned a trip together to Vietnam for a couple of months. Michael was only 17, but we managed to convince his parents to let him come.
We visited tiny villages, we ate with local families, we worked the land with them. I love the feeling of traveling, different cultures and languages. It flipped a switch in my brain. That's when we first started talking about building businesses together. Sam would manage the creative side, and I'd handle the business side. We've actually always been like that. I'm the business and strategy guy, and Sam's the creativity and ideas guy.
That trip was transformational for me. I felt a bit lost before that. But now I knew I was going home to study design and learn about business. When I left for Vietnam, I was kind of a hippie with long hair and beads. But when I came back, I was wearing Ralph Lauren button-ups, slick navy blue pants. My mom was crying at the airport. It was such a transformation.
A few years later, I moved to Japan. I'd met my future wife Rika in Vancouver, and when she returned to Japan, I decided to move there and be with her. I fell in love with the place. I got involved in the business community there, and before long, Sam and I started a branding and marketing consultancy working with large Japanese companies who wanted to take their message overseas. Things were going really well, and it was pretty cool being this 20-something kid consulting with companies like Panasonic and Sumitomo. But after a few years, we decided to move on to the next stage. Rika and I wanted to move back to Canada and make a life for ourselves there. So I went it alone and I started a new consulting business in Vancouver. It took off pretty quickly, and I was making more money than I'd ever made before.
Mike and I made opposite leaps across the Pacific at that time. As he came back to Vancouver, I made the move to Japan. I took a position as a marketing director at a high-profile English magazine. It was a dream job, well paid, lots of freedom, very international. I had a really good lifestyle in Japan, and I loved my work, but after a few years I realized I wanted more freedom. I wanted to be able to have extended stays with family, travel and work all around the world, and really set up my life the way I wanted to. I didn't know it at the time, but Mike was having that same realization.
My consulting business was going well, but we live in Vancouver and my wife's family is from Japan. I really wanted to be able to work from anywhere so that we could visit Japan and spend more time with Rika's family. I was chatting with Sam at a family barbecue and we got to talking about all of this. We decided to do something together again, this time online. We wanted to share everything we'd learned over the years about how to build a successful consulting business, so we started a consulting blog without really knowing where it would go. And I remember being at the gym with Sam in my apartment building at that time. If we can just get to $5,000 a month online, then we're set. We'll be well on our way.
Those early years were really rough. There were lots of ups and downs as we were figuring things out. Mike still had his consulting business going while we built a new business on the side, but I had given up my job and come back from Japan to try to make this thing work. I'd left my girlfriend behind waiting to get her visa to come to Canada. It was a tough period for me personally and professionally. I got to a really dark place. I was asking, why did I do this? I had a good life in Japan. I was questioning everything, and it was impacting things with Mike. Mike told me he'd love to keep working with me, but he did say, you shouldn't do this if it's not making you happy. Life's way too short. I took a week, went away to think about it, and I came back committed. I'd come this far. I wasn't going to quit now.
When Sam decided he was in it for the long haul, we really pushed the gas pedal. We worked with a few different coaches, tried a bunch of stuff. Some of it worked, and some of it didn't. But it was always up and down, and it was unpredictable. We then hit 5K a month, then 10, then 20, but it still felt like we hadn't totally cracked it yet. And that's when we dived into our first elite coaching experience. We invested 5 figures in a coaching and mastermind program, which was a big decision at that time, but it paid off. We learned how to restructure and repackage what we were already doing, and a lot of things just started to unlock very quickly. Over the space of a few months, our sales grew from $20,000 a month to $50,000 a month, and we kept growing from there to the 7-figure business that we have today. After plenty of ups and downs and moments of doubt, it finally felt like we were realizing our potential. It hit me that we'd already had all the elements of success for a long time. We just didn't have the clarity around the right model for us and how to present it and market it to the world. Once we found the right help and support, everything came together.
Looking back, it's clear the thing that made all the difference was being committed and supported at the same time. And I see that with our clients too. If we have a client who's totally committed, they're going to succeed one way or another. For us, business and life are all about the simple things done well. There are certain fundamentals you need to understand, but it doesn't have to be as complicated or flashy as people out there have you to believe. We really do create our own reality. When you fully commit and surround yourself with people who are playing at a higher level, suddenly you're walking taller, being bolder, and pretty soon you're at the top of your game too. Our grandfather Abe Zapersky had a butcher shop in Winnipeg. Both he and our grandma worked very hard to support their 4 kids. They lived their lives very much in the community. There wasn't a lot of money around when our dads were growing up, but they both worked extremely hard and became leaders in their fields. My dad was the executive director of the Jewish Community Center in Vancouver, and Mike's dad was the department head of psychiatry at multiple hospitals. Their time in Israel was an effort to get in touch with the land and their cultural roots, and I think they found a real connection there. My dad made lifelong friends during those years. The experiences stayed with them for 3 to 4 decades since. When Michael and I went to Vietnam, I think it was a similar thing for us. When we were there, we got a sense of the immense possibilities that existed out in the world, and we caught a glimpse of all the potential that existed within us.
I sometimes wonder why my parents let me go on that trip at 17. I think it's because they knew I really needed it. The move back to Canada, the divorce, all that had been hard on me. On one level, I flourished after the tough parts of growing up. I built a successful career at a young age. Becoming established as a successful consultant in Vancouver on my own was great. But when Sam and I found success with this business together, it was a lot more rewarding and fun. It's easy to talk about money and sales, and that's what most people do in our industry. That's what most people tend to focus on. But whether I knew it or not at the time, every major decision I've made in my career has been about meaning, connection, and realizing my potential. Building wealth is definitely important to me, but as you get older, life teaches you what really matters. My stepfather Barry was diagnosed with Alzheimer's around the same time the business started to take off for us. Over a few short years, I watched my mom become pretty much a full-time carer. I couldn't believe how quickly he went from the fully functioning businessman I'd always known him as to losing his memory and becoming frail. I remember I was in Japan when I got the call from my mom. It happened much faster than I thought it would. I jumped on a plane and made it home 4 hours before he passed away. Everything that happened, it put me much more in tune with the importance of enjoying the moment, doing what really matters now and not waiting. Being a present and engaged husband and father is top priority for me. I spent almost half of last year traveling with my wife and daughter. We lived in 5 different countries. Sam actually came out and joined us, spent some time together. I worked, played, had a great time. Combining all these things together with family is joy for me.
It still amazes me that our thoughts and ideas become our reality.
Last year, I finished a creative dream of mine, renovating a house in Osaka.
It's in Nagaya, an old-style row house you find on small streets with just foot traffic. It's a piece of old Japan where even though it's a big city, you get to know your neighbors, you end up talking to the local barber about sake and fishing. Mike and I aren't the types to have a Ferrari in the driveway or anything like that. It's more about traveling, experiences, getting together with family and friends, and having a great meal in a beautiful place. That's how we run the business as well. It's a family business and we treat clients that way too. We refer to our clients as La Familia.
We're proud to have helped hundreds of consultants grow their businesses and achieve their potential. It's a community of people who are real experts in their field and have chosen to sidestep the hype and noise of the marketing world. We focus on lasting fundamentals and building something that you can truly be proud of. If you're more interested in long-term relationships than marketing tricks, we'd love to have you as part of the community. Join us.